Welcome to this second video on navigation. This time we're going to be doing stuff without a GPS on us. So this is sort of pretending like we've been hit by an EMP strike or whatever law reason you want to come up with, but we only have access to map tools and a compass. So first off, we need to be working out our own position. So as before, we're on Snowy again, and we're on this top left island. Now, if you remember back to the last, video, you know we're roughly somewhere around about here, but we want to get an exact position. So one way of doing this is looking around and trying to spot any noticeable landmarks on the horizons. So in this case, there's a tower up in that direction, and there's another one there. By the looks of it, they're both radio towers. So looking at the island and the approximate area we know we're in, we can see that there are two radio towers marked. There is Comms Whiskey down here. There is the GSM station up here. So next thing we can do is, using our compass, we can take this wire section on the top and point that at these locations. So that's towards the radio tower there, and that is an angle of 250, looking at the inside numbers. Then looking at the second radio tower, that is an angle between 3 and 310. So I'm going to call that 305. And then also looking at our compass, we can tell that this one is going to be the northern radio tower, and that one is going to be the southern radio tower. So now we know the angles to our two different radio towers. What we can do is open up our map tools using our self-interaction menu, and then they'll normally start down the bottom left, so you can click and drag them to bring them up here. And then what we can do is, if we use Alt and left click, we can rotate it round. So in this case, what we're going to do is point it to 250, and that is the angle between us and the radio tower, the southern one, which is Comms Whiskey. So what you can do, now we've rotated it, if we click and drag it and put the ruler, so this sort of grey edge of it is alongside Comms Whiskey. Then if we use Control and left click to draw a line down the side, it'll add a straight line onto our map. Now if we want to do the same thing again for the northern tower, so this time we hold Alt and left click and point it towards 305 on the inside of the circle. Then click and drag this, so at this edge, going along the side of the GSM station, and hold down Control left click. We can see the point where these two crosses overlap, and that will place our positioning here. If we want to be even more accurate, we can go for a third point. So, for example, there are some rocks on the top of that hill there, bearing 350. So if we go to 350, then we want to be looking somewhere along this ridgeline here north with rocks on it, which by the looks of it is this area here, because it has slightly grey square rather than the woodland going over it. Now we know that's that position there. Again, we can line up our ruler with it. That's going to place us down at this exact same position down here. So using these lines and looking at where they intersect, that can give us quite a good look at whereabouts we're going to be positioned. So now we have our start position, we can work out what we're going to be heading to. So in this case, it's 031119. So if we zoom in, we go to 031119, which brings us to this square here. And as before, we know we're in the building on this square. So we can mark it, call it Shed 1, which is our target position. Next thing we can do is mark our route we're going to be taking. So as before, we're going to be sticking to the roads, because roads are generally a good idea, makes you less likely to be hitting random rocks, and especially with Armor 3, about doubles your chance of finishing the journey alive. So, to head to this road, once again, we head roughly northwest until we get to a road, then turn left. Then we keep following the road along until we get to our first intersection, at which point we turn left, which we can mark on the map. And then we can follow that down. So last time, we could use our GPS to sort of see which turns we had to take. However, this time, we're not going to be able to do that. So you have to be a bit more observant when driving without a GPS in order to make sure that you're not missing your mark. So we've now hit our road while heading to the northwest. We can just follow this down. Here we go. Now one thing we can do is, pretending this is a longer journey than it is, if we wanted to check that we're going the right route, we can stop and use the same idea we used before to work out our new position and make sure it's on the road we want to be on. So we can see the radio tower there. We could use this sort of quarry looking mountain thing across to our left, and possibly that building off there, or the fact that there's some form of town that way. Because normally speaking, when it comes to towns, we can guess what it might be. So on this route here, if we're going the right way, the only town we would be able to see would be Belfort. And then for that rocky outcrop, that would be this area here. You can tell that would be it because it's got very close together contour lines, quite a few, showing a very steep cliff face on that location. So we know we're going to be on the right path here. We can continue down and wait until we see our shed. Here we go. So we found our shed once again. So once again, we have 03711 and then 11926. So this time we can't just type it into our GPS, we have to use our map tools. But, oh no, from when we've used it earlier, this is now not lined up with the grid. And if we try and use these to get a more accurate position, it's going to go very badly, very quickly. So what we can do is if we go onto our self-action menu, map tools, then align map tools to north, that'll make it nice and square again, which is a very nice feature it has for us. So now, if we're trying to navigate, we can go to 037, which is this line here, and then 119, which is this horizontal here. That puts it this square once again. Then if we take our corners here, we've got 1, 1, so like 1.1 on the X. We go across 1 dash, then 2, 6 for our final two numbers. So in this case, it'll be 3. So we can mark this as position 2. And that will be marked now on our map. So the next thing we're going to do is instead of taking our quad bike for this second route, instead we're going to be walking. So for a short distance like this, all we need to do is drag our compass and put this little dot in the center above our current position. Then if we hold down Alt and rotate it, that'll give us a line between us and our target location, we do this red line pointing towards it. Now what we can do is read off the inside ring what angle we need to be walking at. So it's got 90, 95, so somewhere between 94 and 93 degrees on our compass is the line we need to be following. So if we pull up our compass by pressing K and have a look around, this angle is 90 degrees, this one's 100, so that's like 95, 93 is just slightly left of that. So in terms of picking reference points, we can see sort of a palm tree there, or something like that. We're just going to go towards that, and then pick a new point from there. Normally, you pick a point in the distance which you want to walk towards. However, you can only see about 20. Well, you can only see that far ahead of us, so that's what we're going to pick. Now, a key thing is whenever you're navigating like this, always use your free look if you're looking around. Because if you change where your crosshair is, you could potentially end up walking in the wrong direction without realising. So, we've now got to the palm tree, which we were looking at. So, once again, we can pull a new compass bearing. So, looking 90, slightly right of. Let's go towards that tree there. You just sort of repeat this process, picking an object in the distance and then walking towards that. It's important that you pick an object rather than just looking down at your compass, because otherwise you can end up just getting distracted looking at your compass rather than looking at the area around you, which especially on Arma 3, where ambushes are not unheard of, especially if your Zeus doesn't like you, it's useful to know what's going on. So one thing we've encountered here is quite a steep hill we're having to walk up. So if we have a quick look at our map, see if that could have been avoided. Yeah. So because we're doing a straight line, as a result, we're having to sort of pass along this ridge here and head up. But instead, what we could have done is we could have gone down and around, sort of following the contour lines, going along them, rather than going across them. And that way, we're on flatter ground, and it's a lot easier to maneuver at higher speed. And it also means that we can then, in turn, avoid getting spotted walking up the sides of hills, which is generally a bad idea, due to the fact that you can be seen from quite a while away with very little cover. For here, I'm just going to continue the current route, but for future reference, for planning, that's something to bear in mind as an option. Once again, we're at that tree, so we're going to go slightly right of 90. Just going to head up this way, see if we can spot a new reference point. Right, go to that tree straight ahead of us. That'll be our reference for now. So we can spot something slightly different. It's very important when you're doing a walk like this to make sure you stay on angle. But it can also mean that if you deviate even slightly, you end up at the wrong position. So it's always useful to try and look out for other potential markers. Example, we have that rock we just passed. We know it's going to be this position here. So we know if we're heading with that directly behind us, and heading roughly 090, we're going to be heading in right direction towards our target, which seems to be the case. And there we go, look, we can see from here, got our little box down there by the tree. So that's been navigating without a GPS. Hopefully that's been some use. If you've enjoyed this video, have a quick look, see if there's any others which might be of interest on the channel.